All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related. In this episode today, we're going to be exploring the tactic known as Pike and Shot. And actually, more accurately, I'm going to try to convince you that there are better alternatives to using Vlandian troops than Pike and Shot. That said, we will still try this classic combination of sharpshooters and pikemen in a nasty battle here against the Northern Empire, where they have twice as many troops as us, all tier 5 units on the battlefield here, and they have a cavalry heavy army in the open field. This is basically most commanders' worst nightmare, and we're going to see first what the sergeant does, and then we will try this troop combination and see not just if we can improve, because certainly we're going to be able to beat the disastrous AI sergeant here. Our plan is to form a defensive ring around our ranged troops. Yeah, that's terrific. It's a great concept, except pikemen don't have shields, so this is not going to work particularly well here. But then we will try to use this exact same trio of troops, cavalry, pikemen, and sharpshooters to defeat this massive force of Northern Empire. Now, typically when the AI does a ring defense, it suffers from two major blunders. First, it's too tight of a ring, and that's exactly what's happening here. There's not enough shields on the outside. In fact, they have no shields because it's all pikemen, and their archers in the middle here don't have enough room. None of those guys can shoot, so we start off the battle here by being pin cushions to the enemy horse archers, and they have a lot, right, because we're so badly outnumbered. It looks like our heavy cav here has at least chased off their horse archers for the moment, but the real problem is coming, right? They have something like 500 heavy cavalry, and look, our guys can't shoot. These guys are already bloody. Half of them are staring at the shield of a guy directly behind him. And obviously, we won't spend too much time on this. I just want to give a baseline of how bad this is. And of course, you see this juggernaut cavalry division coming in. The horse archers continue to shoot at us, and now this huge wave of cavalry literally swallows up our little circle. The infantry vanguard is behind it. The enemy has archers and crossbow as well, elite tier 5 archers and crossbow, but they're not going to need them, right? This looks like something out of a science class where a more aggressive amoeba destroys some lesser passive amoeba. That's exactly what happened here. Our plan is to remain defensive. Excellent job there, Commander Carfid. You are fired. And we're going to move on pretty quick from this. I'm curious if they can even kill 100 troops. They had 440 troops, so 100 would be, what, a 1-to-4 kill ratio. They're not even going to get to 100 as the massacre is on here. And that is pretty typical of the AI, right? It just does not function particularly well, especially with unique lineups like this. Now, the real killer here is the sharpshooter. So we're going to start by giving ourselves more sharpshooters, a little bit less cavalry, and basically lean on our killers. Pikemen are not going to kill the enemy en masse, right? They will kill some cavalry, but mostly they're going to stand them up for our crossbow to shoot and kill them. This is going to be a near impossible battle still, and of course I have to actually take charge. This guy wants to form a defensive ring again, and we're going to try to do some dynamic tactics here, actual Pike and Shot tactics, and then I'm going to try to convince you again of an alternative to this. So we're going to do 2 different crossbow divisions. You'll see me do this a lot. Sometimes I use 3, and that's because I want flanking angles, but I also want a reserve division because crossbow have so few arrows, so few bolts. Now, if you're going to do Pike and Shot, make sure your men are spread. If they're tight like that, your crossbow intermixed with them cannot shoot, right? You want basically each of these guys to have a buddy, a guy with the spike standing next to him, and a guy next to him with the crossbow. That is the idea that, like the Spanish tercios or other Pike and Shot divisions throughout world history, they support each other. The pikes keep the cavalry at bay, and then the arquebusiers, or the crossbow in this case, shoot and kill the enemy that's trying to get to the guys with guns, or in this case, crossbow. Now, I'm almost always going to run 2 cavalry divisions or more and put them at angles like that, right? In fact, in this battle, I want to have a 4th because my plan here is to actually dismount the cavalry, this 4th cavalry division, and then use them as a defensive square. I've got to figure out some way to slow down the enemy vanguard because their infantry is also a major problem. A bunch of Manavliatons wailing on our sharpshooters is not going to go well. or the pikemen for that matter. Pikemen are very weak at melee against other infantry. It's a rock, paper, scissors situation. And to be perfectly fair, of course, most people watching this know that pikemen and Bannerlord are well below average. They just don't function like they should. They would be like one-shotting elite cavalry. That rarely happens in the game, right? Once in a while that'll happen if the guy is spear-braced, but rarely does that happen. Now, our cavalry here is doing exactly what I want them to do, right? They're absorbing a lot of the attention here, absorbing a lot of the arrows. We can now open up our reserve crossbow division in the back. That way those guys can do some damage. But that's the main concern, right? 500 cavalry boring in on us. Now, these horse archers are circling us, but these guys are a distraction. They're getting shredded. You can see the death spam so far looks really good for us. So this 4th Corps, we're going to dismount these guys. These guys will turn into infantry because we don't have any standard shield infantry, and I'm going to square them directly behind those horses. Now this does two things. It gives the enemy vanguard a target, and it's going to slow down the heavy cav charge as they come in. We really want our crossbow to work here. Now let's slow down. Let's slow this down just a bit and zoom in here. You guys can see. You can see how bottled up the enemy is just on the horses that are standing there. The enemy doesn't know what to do with it, and of course that's allowing our sharpshooters to shoot. Meanwhile, over here, our pikemen are doing their job. Maybe not great, but you see the horses getting stood up. Every once in a while you hear a guy groan because he got fucking sliced in half by a nasty pike. But for the most part, our crossbow are killing here. We want to basically slow down the heavy cavalry and keep them occupied. This 3rd cav is not part of the battle, so we'll move them towards the center. Anything to occupy the enemy so that this doesn't happen. Their cavalry starting to charge through our crossbow. That's going to slow our roll here. Now the enemy vanguard is coming in here, so we're going to move this cavalry division. It used to be cavalry, now it's infantry, away from them. Basically baiting them, sort of waving it in front of the enemy like a red flag to a bull, saying attack this. And the enemy cavalry kind of swarmed our cavalry here. That's amazing. That's really good for us because these crossbow are just firing away. Now there's guys here just standing there and they're not attacking. You see they're just holding their sword. Charge at those guys, right? That way they're adding their melee to the mix as well. They're out of bolts already. We might as well get them into battle. This is going a lot better than I expected. But of course, you know, when you apply tactics to Bannerlord, it's a totally different game. The AI got completely butchered with these same troops, and we're mangling the enemy here. We might even win this battle. It certainly looks pretty good. Now, the 7th Division's out of ammo, too, or at least some of them charge, right? That way the guys without ammo won't just stand there with their thumb up their ass. Every single guy in this battle is necessary. If we're going to win this battle, we want them charging. We might be able to win this fucking battle. Get up there, boys. We'll speed this along here because I have at least one more example I want to show you. I want to show you an alternative to pike and shot, so stay tuned for that. Let's just see if these guys can pull this out. They're trying to slug it out against enemy infantry, and that's not always going to go well. Although, there's just a huge green flush. I think they just destroyed the vanguard. We weakened them enough, and they did. So now it's just a question of can we close on the archers. The big problem at this stage is we're out of ammo. So their archers, they still have elite archers firing away at us. Their crossbow and their archers, they even have some horse archers here. We don't have any bolts left. This is the big disadvantage of crossbow is they only have 18, 20, 22 bolts, somewhere in that range, where some archers have 50 or 60 arrows. It's a big advantage in a long battle like this where attrition is becoming a problem. So I wasn't going to play this out, but we'll go ahead and try. I'm moving up one crossbow division in this shield wall, and the others are kind of trickling in behind, and we'll have them charge. It doesn't really matter that much whether we win or lose. The bottom line is those tactics there. If you want to engage the enemy in pike and shot, right? You want to play a Vlandian campaign with pike and shot. That should at least give you a baseline of how to do it. It was pretty fantastic, really. Don't forget we're outnumbered 2-1 here against equal quality troops, and we're damn close to winning this battle here. Maybe if I can behead a few of these archers. They're starting to kite, which is really bad news for us because our shield wall has to hold their shields up, otherwise they'll get skewered. Eventually they're going to get range on us here, and we're going to be probably cooked. But we gave it a good run here, no matter what, win or lose. The other thing I'll mention for sure, if you're a big fan of pikes, you want to play Pikes and Bannerlord, and you have a PC, I must mention this part, there's no mods on the console yet, then the option for sure, you want to use RBM, and there's mods that are like better Pikes and breakable Pikes, and there's a bunch of different options that dramatically, hugely power up Spears and Bannerlord. A lot of people think it's more authentic, so that'll give you another option. All right, so now I'm going to try to convince you to use the rest of the Vlandian troops. A lot of guys like to just dismiss some of these units as worthless. I'm going to show you how I think these guys should be used. And we'll fight the exact same battle. We'll just give ourselves a little bit more infantry here, a little bit more cavalry, plenty of sharpshooters, of course, as well, and see if we can't pull this battle out. That was close. I think if we use good tactics here, separation of units, then we have a shot to win. Now, this is going to be confusing for a lot of newer players, so you may need to watch this a couple times. We're going to do 2 crossbow divisions just like the last time, 2 cavalry divisions. All of that's the same, but let's look at the infantry. Now we have Sergeant, Pikemen, and Volunteers, which are pole arms that swing a big slashing weapon. And we want to separate those units. I'm actually going to run 4 infantry divisions here. I know this seems like a lot of micromanagement, but I'm confident that all of you can do this because most of the steps, most of these guys, the movement and the setup is pre-battle. Now I want to separate the Vlandian Sergeants from the Pikemen and the Volunteers from the Pikemen. So let's put a shield. We put this little preference to shields. The Pikemen and the Volunteers don't have shields, so instantly, right, we have our Sergeant division. They're going to play defense in this battle. Sergeants are excellent defensive shield, spear warriors. Good armor. They look good in their armor. They'll be out front. We're going to use, of course, 2 cavalry divisions on both wings, but this battle, we're going to give these guys a dance partner. We're going to give these guys savage shock troops to help them fight. This strategy, this tactic, I generally called shield and shock, and that's because you're combining the shield of the cavalry with shock troops. But how do you divide them, right? How do you get the pikemen and the Volunteers in different divisions? Because I don't want pikemen helping the cavalry. Well, the way to do it, if you don't know this, the Volunteers have a pitiful little throwing axe. So what we're going to do here with the 6th and 8th division, let's see, I don't have as many infantry as I thought I was going to have. I want to have roughly equal divisions here. The first needs to be about 40 because a square of like less than 35, 40 breaks down quickly under assault, and it's going to be taking heavy assault. So the 6th and 8th, look at this. It's pikemen and Volunteers. All I do is go to this little button, click it, and say preference to troops with throwing weapons, and voila, right? Voila. All Volunteers, right? These nasty basically, it's a swingable pike polearm, and they're one of the nastiest units in the game. They do major damage, especially to horsemen, so we're going to put them right behind the cavalry. The guys in front are shield, the guys behind them are shock, and they're dance partners. These guys, for all intents and purposes in this battle, they stay together. And of course, the shock troops behind the cavalry to protect them against arrows, to protect them against charging cavalry, etc. So the 1st division of sergeants out front. Now we have this 4th division of pikemen. For you guys that pike and shot, I know there's only 25 pikemen, 27 pikemen, but there you have it, right? They help. Those guys are going to be spearing the cavalry that kind of slide through the rest of that, and then everybody else is going to be shot to death by our crossbow, right? Our crossbow in 2 big divisions here, the 5th, and I like to keep a reserve division in the back because of what I mentioned before. They will run out of bolts in a long battle like this. So the 5th will open fire first, probably to kill the enemy horse archers, and the 7th will be on hold fire. Then later in the battle, you know, a minute later even, the 7th will open fire. So let's put the 1st out just a little bit more. And there's one more critical point that I'm going to get to here. Okay, we got a little bit of frames per second slowing here. Sometimes the RTS mod on some battles gives it a hard time. Let me run over to this 8th division here, these Volunteers. You can't really tell unless you're an experienced player, but I just told the 7th to hold fire, and look at this guy holding that little axe. They have throwing weapons, right? That's how we separated them from the pikemen. We don't want them using it. It's a pitiful little throwing axe. It's kind of a broken system. So the 6th and 8th, before the enemy even gets here, we're just telling them to hold fire because I don't want those fuckos trying to throw these little tiny throwing hatchets when they have a man-cleaving glaive. It's actually a Volge, right? It's basically... you history experts can probably correct me. It's basically a French or Italian polearm, right? It's the glaive equivalent for the Vlandians. Now we're going to speed this up a little bit here just because the enemy's taking a little while to get to us. In fact, let's go ahead and just fly out here with the RTS mod so we can see our foe coming in. The AI is designed generally to send horse archers to basically soften you up. You need to be careful with your ammo here, right? This is the threat. I've got 500 and something heavy cavalry, a bunch of a bunch of archers, a bunch of infantry coming. I need to save some bolts for those guys, but at the same time, I can't hold fire and just let these horse archers shoot us to pieces. The other element of this that I really haven't talked about is what's called a peekaboo ridge or a reverse slope decline. You see how the enemy can't really see our troops till it gets over this ridge? When it does, the only thing it's going to see is crossbow bolts flying right between the eyes, and that is very intentional. Now that their horses come over the ridge, the 5th Corps can be told, kill these boys, right? And they're instantly loaded and the bolts start flying. And look at the upper right-hand corner, right? The death spam is imminent as these horse archers get shredded. I've covered this before in other guides, but cavalry, horse archers especially, get shredded in Bannerlord by crossbow. And that is historically accurate by all accounts. The crossbowmen are standing still. They have a very high-speed bolt, and it just mangles horse archers. Now again, the 7th is on hold fire, and that's because we're going to need those bolts for the fight to come. Again, if the 5th Corps of crossbow run out of bolts, what are we going to do, right? We're going to charge, and at least they're in the battle still. The enemy roars. They charge with 500 heavy horse here. It's like the Battle of Falkirk and Braveheart, or I guess it's the Battle of Stirling. In they come here. Watch our square. These guys dutifully hold the line here, right? A square of high-level infantry with all shields does really well. I don't know if a single guy would get killed there. And they're sort of distracting the enemy. Now there's the pikes, right? As our enemy gets shot off their horses in slow-mo, and it actually deterred the cavalry from running through. This is critical. When the enemy's going to charge your cav line, it's clear, send in these murderers. This is your micromanaging. Your 6th and the 8th, you're going to be intermittently charging with these guys. Now, nobody's attacking the 6th over here, so we're just going to leave those guys right there. They got their dance partner, the 8th is going to work, and more importantly, our crossbow guys are just lighting everything up. Over here, of course, I've already talked about it. Look at these guys. We'll slow it down a little bit. These guys destroy horsemen, and because they're moving slow, they're just absolutely abused. These guys are just getting mangled. Now, the enemy horse archers are kind of charging through. It's a little bit of a mess, but the death spam sure isn't. It looks like a complete massacre so far. Again, we still have our 4th Corps, the pikes in the middle, and that main group of sergeants is holding out. 41 guys. I think there's been 1 or 2 deaths. Now, I'm going to reset the 8th, pull them back, and I'm going to start moving this square towards the uninjured Volgiers. The reason I'm doing that is I want the enemy vanguard to be facing shock troops when they charge our square. So we're going to tuck the 8th back in here, right, with its dance partner. The enemy's got archers, but they're not really doing a lot of damage at the range they're at. Of course, we've got all these cavalry holding up their spears here too, right? So I'm going to move the 4th as well. We'll get them in a combined charge here momentarily. The crossbow are just about out of ammo, at least the 5th Division, so we'll charge with them as well. I'm pulling the square right next to these uninjured shock troops. These guys are very disciplined. They're just waiting for our order to kill, and the enemy's in a meat grinder here now, right? The 8th Corps charges. In fact, we can charge with a bunch of units here. The 8th can charge. The 5th crossbow could be told to charge. A lot of those guys are out of ammo. All of them will roar up. The 6th shock troops on this side, they can be told to charge. The 2nd cavalry can charge. Meanwhile, at the very back, still with ammo, our 7th crossbow are still working. Now, I see some of them holding up their sword, so they're out of ammo too. Now, the enemy archers are trying to get line of sight here. Now is the time to F1, F3. Guys make fun of that tactic. This is the perfect time. We're not about to let their archers set up on the ridge here and start firing down into our ranks. There's a huge destructive scrum going on in here, but I think the enemy is torched here. There's a huge amount of crossbow that are charging. I see Volgiers still bobbing their glaive up and down on the head of the enemy. This battle is over. Our shock troops are reaching their line, although these guys are going to get killed by archers, right? They don't have a shield, but they're keeping them occupied. Our other side here, this left side, is just a steamroller. There's like 200 troops here. I just heard the enemy say, retreat! And that's it, friends. Outnumbered 2-1 here. We didn't just win. What is that guy, that Scottish-sounding guy? We whipped the bastards, right? This is an absolute destructive massacre. I mean, we're outnumbered 2-1 against equal quality troops here. and most of our troops are alive. This is the very definition of dominance in Bannerlord. Hopefully that convinces you guys to explore some tactics, and hopefully you come back right to the channel to learn this kind of devastation. Of course, the sharpshooters ripped it, the Volgiers ripped it as well. Total domination. A 5-to-1 KDR, despite the fact that we're outnumbered 2-to-1. So I might as well do this just so everybody can see. You know, there's no wool. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes here. That's not what we do on the channel. Our channel is dedicated to tactics and Bannerlord. And the main reason I think that people need to engage in tactics and Bannerlord, and I say the main reason you should, it's a game, you're having fun, is satisfaction. Right? A lot of our lives are artificial. We work in cubicles. We go to college and learn obscure things that are not worthwhile. I'm going to teach you how to win at Bannerlord, right? And what that'll do is that'll help you just get more endorphins, more positive feeling from playing Bannerlord. You'll have a lot more sense of accomplishment. You'll have a feeling that you actually did something instead of just hitting F1, F3 and running around with your polearm swinging your weapon at guys. Using tactics in Bannerlord really is an amazing thing once you start to develop a routine. The AI here is doing a little bit better in this second battle, but it's still a disgraceful effort. And ultimately, I think you'll just have more fun and more sense of accomplishment if you use tactics in Bannerlord. And this is the place to learn. All right, what do we got here? Let's see. I can't tell our strategy, but the enemy's pouring up with cavalry. Again, it seems like our strategy is fully defensive. He said we're going to form a defensive ring. So we're being defensive here as thousands of heavy horse charge our ring. Let's be defensive here. We're in a tight knot. Sir, what's our plan? We're being defensive here. Nobody's shooting. I'm standing next to guys. They all smell like they haven't bathed in 2 months. What are we doing here? None of these guys are shooting at all. We're getting a few kills. But, sir, our defensive formation's holding, but there's enemies all around us. Is our plan to be encircled? Sir, it does appear that we're being systematically annihilated here. What is our plan? Our plan is to remain on the defensive. Radagast, the genius here. I'm holding up my shield. I'm being defensive. Is it working? We're being defensive here. I don't know what to do here. I guess we're just going to get killed. And you see, of course, what the AI does here with their tactics. Please don't let the sergeant take control of your army. Please engage in some tactics. Please go back to the channel. And, of course, please subscribe if you want to see more, friends. This is what I do. Tactics are in my blood, practically. I fucking love this shit. And there's plenty more where that came from. All right, so we're going to wrap this episode up. Of course, you want to subscribe, like I said. Please hit that like button on the way out if you watched to this point. I appreciate it, fellas. With all that said, I will see you, friends, next time.